A shocking diplomatic twist. Russia and Ukraine might finally be heading toward peace, but not in the way anyone expected. The US, NATO, and even Turkey are making bold moves that could change the course of the war forever. Behind closed doors, critical talks in Riyadh, Istanbul, and Ankara have revealed game-changing strategies, including a possible peacekeeping mission that could shock the world. But what exactly is happening? Is Russia really willing to negotiate? And how does Turkey's latest move send ripples through global politics? Stay with us as we unravel the biggest diplomatic maneuver of the decade. One of the main focuses of the world lately is how the war between Russia and Ukraine will end. The Eastern Bloc, Western Europe, the US, the EU, NATO, and many other countries and international organizations are making serious efforts for this. In this regard, the US side met with the Russian delegation in Riyadh. There were important details in these talks that raised hopes for an end to the war between the two countries. Senior diplomats from both countries reported that the talk marked an extraordinary turn in foreign policy under US President Donald Trump. Steve Witkoff, US President Donald Trump's special envoy, said in a statement that the US is very close to reaching a peace agreement that will end the war between Ukraine and Russia, and President Putin was very flexible in his thinking, released him, and I think it was a huge signal to President Trump that he wants to get a deal done. By pointing to the so-called Istanbul Protocol Agreement, Steve Witkoff emphasized Turkey's strategic role in the peace process of the war between Ukraine and Russia, while the second round of talks between the United States and Russia was eagerly awaited. On the other front, the European Union was making preparations for a possible peace situation. The EU wing convened the leaders of the member states and adopted the 10th sanctions package against Russia. The aim was to end the war as soon as possible by restricting Russia economically. In addition to sanctions against Russia, the United Kingdom and France reconsidered the idea of sending troops to Ukraine. This has been on France's agenda for a long time, but the Paris government has not talked much about sending troops to Ukraine recently. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, has brought the idea of sending troops back to the agenda and attracted all the attention. These proposals from the West, however, have been a great source of inspiration for Turkey, which has said that it will align itself with the United States and make every effort to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. The government in Ankara made the move that Russian President Vladimir Putin had least expected and followed up on the idea last mentioned by the UK and France to end the war. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced that he would mobilize a peacekeeping mission after recent meetings with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Erdogan shocked the world by announcing that he might send peacekeepers to Ukraine. Now, we will take a closer look at this critical decision and discover the conditions under which Turkey will send peacekeepers to Ukraine and how the US and Russia will react. But first, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and give us a like to stay up to date with our content. Let's get started. Turkey may join a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine as part of Trump's ceasefire efforts with Putin. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan raised this possibility in separate meetings in Ankara with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Most recently, after talks between the US and Russian delegations in Istanbul, Erdogan shocked even the EU with his decision. Erdogan's dramatic decision to deploy troops put Turkey in a critical position, potentially easing the burden on European allies such as the United Kingdom and France, who were planning a European-led mission to Ukraine already. President Erdogan has maintained strong ties with both Ukraine and Russia, and played a key role in negotiating the now-defunct Black Sea grain agreement. Now, with the troop deployment plan, we can see Turkey as a much deeper actor on the ground. Of course, Turkey has conditions. The Ankara government has announced that it will not implement the troop deployment plan unless it is part of such an agreement, but if the conditions are met, there will be no obstacle to this. The Ukrainian and US sides seem quite happy with this decision. In fact, Ukrainian officials are already sharing information about Turkey's ability to carry out important activities in this regard. A Ukrainian official close to the talks confirmed Turkey's support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, suggesting that Ankara could provide credible and enforceable peace and security guarantees. While Washington supports the concept, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Heath suggested on February 4th that such a mission would not involve U.S. troops and should be led by European and non-European allies. U.S. President Donald Trump, on the other hand, said he had made Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin accept the peacekeeping plan. Even if Putin accepts this plan, assuming that there are those in the Kremlin who oppose the idea of deploying peacekeepers, Turkey's decision will come as a shock. So what kind of roles can Turkey, which has taken this critical decision to deploy peacekeepers, play differently in the future? First of all, Turkey's geostrategic advantages, its activity so far, and its attitude towards the war, are very important. The country is a NATO member, and was one of the few suppliers of military equipment to Ukraine in the early stages of the war. Moreover, Ankara has developed deep strategic defense cooperation with Kiev, beyond the sale of drones. Turkey's relations with Ukraine are therefore more strategic in nature. Nevertheless, Turkey has close ties with Moscow. Moreover, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has a close personal relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Likewise, Turkey has refrained from joining the Western sanctions against Russia. These factors enable Ankara to maintain good relations with both Ukraine and Russia, enabling it to play multiple roles throughout the conflict: diplomatic, economic, security, and humanitarian, despite the constraints. Ankara could play an important role if President-elect Donald Trump decides to pursue a diplomatic path in the war. Turkey is the strongest NATO littoral state on the Black Sea, with close ties to Ukraine and Russia. Moreover, Turkey has made similar efforts in the past to bring peace to Ukraine since the beginning of the war. Despite criticism from the West, Turkey has tried to walk a fine line to showcase its diplomatic skills. It was a strategy that yielded tangible results. First, Turkey hosted an important meeting in Antalya in March, bringing together the foreign ministers of Russia and Ukraine for bilateral talks. Although this meeting was a dead end with no prospects, it was the first high-level interaction between the two countries since the conflict began, highlighting Turkey's role as an early mediator. A more productive initiative was the Black Sea Grain Initiative. This initiative stemmed from concerns that started at the beginning of the Ukrainian war. When the war started, it led to a global food crisis and grain shortages. On July 2nd, Turkey and the United Nations brokered an agreement between the warring parties to establish a transport corridor for Ukrainian grain, a lifeline for millions of people. This agreement was crucial to alleviate the food crisis and strengthen the Ukrainian economy at a turbulent time. Building on its role as a diplomatic facilitator, Ankara hosted U.S. and Russian spy chiefs to discuss nuclear threats in November. Likewise, Turkey's diplomatic efforts were instrumental in the recent prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine. This deal was warmly welcomed by the international community. It ensured the safe return of key detainees and demonstrated the effectiveness of Turkey's mediation role. Turkey's political position is an enabler for such a role. Since the beginning of the war, Turkey's position was ultimately unique. On the one hand, Turkey strongly supported Ukraine's self-defense and territorial integrity, and provided Ukraine with drones and other weapons. At the same time, Turkey refrained from joining Western sanctions against Russia, and maintained energy ties by continuing the transfer of Russian gas, which is vital for the Russian economy. This balancing act came about as Turkey viewed the global order as more multipolar and less Western-centered, which increased the importance of regional frameworks. Such a worldview required Turkey to simultaneously maintain close ties with Russia and Ukraine. Despite these advantages, several challenges could hinder Turkey's mediation ability. First, being a central actor in the Ukrainian conflict undermines Turkey's image of neutrality. In addition to being part of the Black Sea security architecture and the ultimate custodian of control of the Straits, Turkey balances Russia in other important geographies, including Syria and Libya. In other words, Turkey is ultimately a hedge player rather than a neutral third party. Russia may oppose Turkey's mediation role due to its military support to Ukraine, including the provision of Bayraktar TB2 drones. Similarly, Turkey still considers Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk as Ukrainian territory, which could attract Russian criticism. As a NATO member, Turkey is ultimately aligned with the transatlantic alliance, which Russia sees as an enemy. The West may also be wary of endorsing Turkey's key role in ending the conflict, given uncertainties about its future position within the wider West. These concerns could be mitigated by greater clarity about Turkey's place in the post-war security order. Ankara may be willing to lean more heavily on its mediation role if it sees a clear path towards the creation of a stable and inclusive regional security framework. Regardless of its mediation role, Turkey should advocate for negotiations that can give Ukraine the opportunity to build its arsenal for recovery and self-defense, and embed Ukraine in the European security architecture. Any other position is likely to encourage Russia to continue its aggression. Recognizing this, Turkey can use its position as a counterweight to Russia in the Black Sea to influence the negotiations. Turkey should also aim to be a key actor in the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine and rebuild its defense industrial base. Such an approach would serve both a more sustainable solution and Turkey's aspiration to become a key regional power. Meaningful coordination between the US and Turkey could contribute to a sustainable ceasefire in Ukraine. The Trump administration has some room to leverage Turkey's position to end the conflict in Ukraine's favor. At a basic level, President Trump could leverage his personal relationship with President Erdogan to engage in leader-level diplomacy with President Putin, potentially creating a positive framework for negotiating talks. However, the US could also cooperate with Turkey on energy projects to reduce Turkey's dependence on Russian oil and gas. This could be a key factor in ending the war. Moreover, Turkey's contribution to the negotiations will be limited without clarity on the role of the strategic framework between the West and Turkey in the Western security architecture. A more Europeanized NATO, with Turkey playing a more prominent role, could therefore help resolve this ambiguity. A diplomatic solution also requires clarity on the future of Ukraine, the security dynamics of the Black Sea, and their respective roles within the broader European security framework. Achieving this will require more intensive foreign and security policy coordination between Turkey, the European Union, and the United Kingdom. Dutch cooperation is important not only to ensure sustainable peace in Ukraine, but also to effectively counterbalance Russian influence in Turkey and Europe's shared neighborhoods. However, it remains to be seen whether this cooperation will materialize. Recent statements by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan have been quite harsh. After the February 5th cabinet meeting, President Erdogan made provocative remarks that are likely to anger European Union officials, who are caught between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to Erdogan, liberal democracy, the most fascinating ideology of the last century, has entered a serious crisis and deadlock. Claiming that the resulting political vacuum is being filled by far-right demagogues, Erdogan argues that Europe urgently needs a new lifeline and Turkey is that lifeline. At a time when international political and economic dynamics are fragmenting and reconfiguring, especially in the aftermath of Trump's presidency, asymmetric dynamics and uneven development factors make it necessary to evaluate current conditions beyond traditional frameworks. Erdogan's perspective is crucial in understanding Turkey's strategic maneuvers within the geopolitical landscape. His views often provide a nuanced take on the shifting alliances and emerging threats in the region. Erdogan's statement came on the heels of the February 3rd German elections, in which the far right gained significant ground, and the nationalist AfD became the second largest party in the Bundestag. The fact that his statements contain important observations suggests that this was a calculated statement, and that he was waiting for the expected German election results to materialize. We should also note Erdogan's recent high-level meetings with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on December 10th, and German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier in Ankara on February 5th. At the time, Erdogan emphasized that Steinmeier's visit to our country was meaningful, and said that they discussed urgent issues comprehensively. 2 weeks before Germany's critical elections, Nacho Sanchez Amor, the European Parliament's rapporteur on Turkey, said there was a widespread feeling that there was nothing left to discuss with Turkey. But this contradicted von der Leyen's pledge in Ankara of an additional $3 billion to stop migration. The German elections mark a pivotal moment in European politics. The outcomes will undoubtedly influence both domestic and international policies, shaping the future of the European Union. High-level meetings continue as diplomats and officials work tirelessly to navigate the complex geopolitical landscape. These discussions are crucial for maintaining stability and forging new alliances. First, Turkey's strategic distance from European affairs helps Ankara strengthen its position in Moscow. This is because Russia sees Turkey, free from EU constraints, as a neutral player with which it can interact. Second, its military autonomy, especially in drone warfare and weapons production, coincides with President Donald Trump's push for self-sufficiency within NATO. Trump has publicly praised Turkey after its military successes in Syria. Third, despite its relations with Moscow, Turkey remains one of Ukraine's strongest supporters. Steadfast in defending Kiev's territorial integrity and countering Russian expansionism, supporting Ukraine limits Russia's expansion in the Black Sea and strengthens Turkey's strategic position. From Ankara's perspective, a resilient and sovereign Ukraine is an important check against Russian dominance in the region. By arming Ukraine with one hand and dealing with Russia with the other, Turkey has used its strategic influence to great effect. Turkey's power projection in the region has been multifaceted. On one hand, Ankara has engaged in military support and strategic alliances, while on the other, it has maintained a complex diplomatic relationship with Moscow. This dual approach has allowed Turkey to assert its influence and protect its interests in an increasingly volatile geopolitical landscape. In recent years, Turkey has maintained a strategic distance from the escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. This calculated stance has allowed Turkey to navigate its complex relations with both nations, balancing its geopolitical interests while asserting its regional influence. The international community has rallied in support of Ukraine, with various forms of assistance pouring in from different parts of the world. This collective effort aims to bolster Ukraine's defense capabilities and provide humanitarian aid to those affected by the conflict. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the roles and responses of various nations will shape the future of this conflict. The pursuit of peace remains a shared objective, but achieving it will require sustained diplomatic efforts and a commitment to dialogue from all parties involved. Turkey's role in this geopolitical chessboard is both pivotal and complex. By maintaining its strategic distance, Turkey has positioned itself as a key player in potential peace negotiations, leveraging its unique relationships with both Russia and Ukraine to foster dialogue and stability in the region.